This is if somebody's trying to reach at you. Maybe they've already got a hold of your neck, but it's better to get them before they grab a hold of you. As he's reaching towards me, I'm going to change my weight down and push his hands up at the same time, meeting him halfway. That's going to bring him close, and I'm going to use my fingertips. Once I push his hands out of the way, I stand up, and I'm going to push 2 fingers. I'm aiming for the spot on the bottom of the throat, right where the clavicle comes together. That's going to push him away from me. So he reaches at me, I stop him, I push him away, then I'm going to do a circle, and I'm going to clear his arms out of the way so he can't hit me, and I open up some prime real estate to hit on him. Let's take a look at what grass bird's tail left does. In this case, he's going to be punching at me with his right hand. Now, there's 2 ways I can interact with this punch. That's not one of them. First of all, I don't want to try to catch his punch like you see in the movies. All of his power is trying to come to here, and I don't want to fight power for power. I instead want to send his power in another direction. So one application of grass bird's tail left is I meet his power and I push it off to the side. You'll notice when I do that, I get all kinds of really nice areas I can strike to. There's another way as well. You'll notice as I'm standing and waiting for him here in this left cat stance, my right hand is here on top, already protecting my face. So he throws the punch, I can just slap the back of his hand, and then my fingers just catch on his wrist. Remember, that right hand movement was doing a pulling motion, so his energy's already coming that way. I'm just going to add a little power to it and throw him off balance. But then at the same time, I'm committing my weight forward, and I'm shooting this left hand forward. This is going to cause the pressure of a head-on collision. He throws the punch, I'm waiting for him, I grab, I pull, and I smash that forearm into the ribs. Let's take a look at what that does. So in this case, he's now going to be punching at me with his left hand, and he's going to do one of these that you see in the westerns all the time, what's called a haymaker. He's just going to swing that arm and try to take my head off. So the grass bird's tail right, obviously if I try to block a punch like that with just one hand, my arm's not going to be strong enough. He's got way too much momentum. I've got to meet his force. So I'm already in this position where I'm in this cat stance. I'm waiting for him to move. As soon as I see that shoulder move, you'll notice how I blocked it with both hands. I'm trying to take this X of my left hand feeling my right pulse. I'm trying to get that to intersect right here at the arm. Now notice I'm not just stopping it to the side, but I'm lifting it up above my head. That way if the punch is coming in really hard, it's going to slip over the top, and again, it's going to open up all kinds of prime real estate that I can strike at. Let's take a look at what that does. We had ended with that grass bird's tail right. He had threw this haymaker punch, and I blocked it and I pushed it over my head. From this position, my left hand is going to catch onto his wrist. My right hand is going to reach for his elbow. This is why we want to use our entire body weight. If he's stronger than me, my arms aren't going to be able to push what is called an arm bar. I want my whole body weight creating that motion. It's going to make him harder to resist. But when I get here, I don't want to have a tug-of-war with him. Remember, Tai Chi, we're not trying to fight strength for strength. We're trying to use our opponent's strength against him. Even if you notice from this position of that hook, I didn't stop it. I continued it over, and I just added to that momentum. Now that he's here, he's not going to like this pain on his elbow. He's going to want to pull his arm back. So instead of fighting strength for strength, I'm going to create my frame. I'm going to support that frame. I'm just going to change my body weight. This is going to stand him up a little bit. Notice I didn't send him flying off into the forest. But I did get him to stand up. And now that he's leaning backwards, look at what came out. Here's where the push comes in. I sit away. I'm going to get down below him. As I push, I want to lift away from the forest floor. And now notice I was able to push him back into the trees. Let's take a look at what that does. So in this case, he's going to be using what in boxing is referred to commonly as a 1-2 punch, or a jab and a cross. Remember, we're not John Wayne. He throws the punch. I don't want to try to stop that punch, especially if he's bigger and stronger than me. That's not going to work. Might not even work if he's smaller than me. Instead, what I want to do is take his power and send it somewhere else. We're going to be using these blocks from Cloud's hands that was also in Karate Kid. Wax off. So he throws the first punch. I'm going to just take the punch. I'm going to push it to the side. Notice I'm making a waving motion like I'm trying to say, hi, why did you just try to punch me? He throws the second punch. Same thing. I'm going to block it. I'm going to push it off to the side. Now here's the important part about this second punch. This is his knockout punch. It's the one that has all the power. And because of that, it's going to be a little slower. I'm going to use that to my advantage. So he throws the first punch, which is quick. He throws the second punch. I'm going to block it, and then I'm going to catch it. I cut on the wrist. It works a lot like catching the handcuffs. Or if he's got a nice flowy shirt like this, I'm going to use my crane beak, and I'm going to catch a hold of his sleeve. And even from his sleeve, notice how much control I have over his balance right there. So now here is where I'm going to change his mind about wanting to hit me. He throws the first punch, I redirect it. He throws the second punch, I catch it. From this point, I'm going to step forward so I can get my body weight behind it. I'm going to open up my fingers, and I'm going to put that right across his stomach and his ribs. Now, I don't want to hit him and stop. I don't want to hit him and bounce off, but I want to strike all the way through, which is that position from single whip. Now, if he commits a lot of power to that punch, I can use that to my advantage and change it into a trip. So he throws the first punch, I block it. He throws the second punch, I block it and catch it. Look at how much distance he covered. He covered all that for me. Now as I do my step, you'll notice my knee comes behind his knee. My hand presses up. This is an arm bar. He's in a lot of pain, and I'm trying to make his body weight go up. You remember the arm bar from pull back. It's the same exact technique, but I'm using my shoulder instead of my elbow. Once I've got him lifted up, I'm just going to turn the direction to single whip, and you'll notice if I wasn't holding on to him, he'd end up down on the ground. Now that he's laying on his back, I can run away, and it makes it harder for him to catch me. That wraps up the first section of the Tai Chi form. Let's explore raise hands. So in this case, he's going to be using that same boxing 1-2 punch. I'm also going to be using a boxing technique called a slip. To help with the orientation on this, I'm going to change the angle of my single whip so you can see what he's doing and what techniques I'm utilizing. Here's the idea of the slip. If my head is over here, he's trying to hit me there. So if I don't see it in time to bring my block up, I can just change where my head's at. That puts that hand right over my ear and opens up some real estate for me to hit. Now you'll notice that as I change that position, I'm generating power. Let's use some of that power to our advantage. We're going to find the center. Tai Chi, you're always trying to find their center of gravity. In this case, the center I'm looking for is the one that lines up with his buttons. If I can get my hand on that center, I can affect his balance. So altogether, if he's trying to hit me, I change my position and I smack him right in the stomach. Now notice that put my head right over here. He's going to try to hit me with that number 2 punch. I change my position. Look at where that hand came. And look, I'm looking right over the top of his hand. Now my weight's over here on my left leg. My right leg is fairly light. I'm going to use that to change my position and do what's called a trap. I just take my hand, I push his elbow, and I push it into his body, and I try to push him a little off balance. He tries to punch at me. I can grab a hold of his elbow, and I can keep him from turning to me. I can take some of his power away with that. Once I've done that trap, I'm going to put my other hand defensively right out in front of me and point it at his nose. My right foot, I'm going to put on the heel. Notice where my toes point. If he does go to throw that punch, first thing I'm going to react with is a kick right where he doesn't want me to kick him. From there, I can have all kinds of real estate open, being able to strike along the center line. Let's take a look at what that does. So in this case, my opponent's going to be reaching out like he's trying to grab me. I'm not John Wayne. I don't want to catch his hands and have a little wrestling match with him, because if he's stronger than me, obviously I'm going to lose that match. The Tai Chi concept is instead to redirect where that force is going and then to use that force against him. So in this case, I just got done fighting his buddy this way. As soon as I see movement of somebody coming from this side, I need to change my position to face it. And this is that cat stance. Remember our transition, this hand coming under, and I'm changing my feet. Now I'm in this position where if I need to, I can move, I can duck, I can jump. He reaches towards me. I'm going to push one hand down. I'm going to push the other hand up. Notice I'm on the inside of his arms. If he's trying to grab me from here, he's fighting my strength. Once I'm on the inside of the arm, it makes a really easy path for this hand to reach up, and I'm aiming for this spot right where the earlobe meets the jaw. There's a nerve back there. If you can hit it, you can actually cause them to get knocked out. Once I've spread the wings, I'm not going to use just one strike. It's a combo. I'm going to strike one ear, then I'm going to reach around and strike the other ear. That is stork spreads its wings. Let's take a look at what that does. In this case, for the left brush knee, I'm going to have him continue his combo from a 1-2 punch into a roundhouse kick, which is a common kickboxing or even a taekwondo combo. I'm in my position of raised hands. He throws the first punch, I can block it and redirect. Second punch, I can block it, redirect. Here comes that power kick. Now, instead of being out here to be able to catch the kick, I want to step in and stop it at his knee. This is where my brush knee is going to come into play. The kick comes in, I push above his leg, and since he's on one leg, I'm going to push him off balance backwards. So altogether, it would go from my stork spreads its wings, first block, second block, here comes the kick, and now I send him down into the street. Let's take a look at what that does. So as I did the left brush knee, I did a push, and Matt puts my right hand way out in front of me. If he goes off balance, he's probably going to catch it and pull me off balance at the same time. So in order to catch my balance, when he pulls me, I'm going to draw my back foot into center and get my hips underneath me. That's going to get my weight going straight down. Same time, I'm going to take my right hand, I'm going to curl it around his pinky and twist his palm to face towards the sky. My left foot's going to kick out in front of me. This could be a shin kick, and that could definitely change his mind about what's going on right now. But mainly, I want to put the heel down on the ground to be able to support power to my left hand that's coming underneath his left elbow. My leg pushes, my hand pushes in opposite directions, and that causes an arm bar, very similar to the arm bar we did earlier, but it's going upward. And that creates that motion of play the fiddle. Let's take a look at what that does. We had just ended our previous technique with what we called an upward armbar, and in the Tai Chi form is referred to as play the fiddle. The idea was to get him to lift his body weight up so that I didn't have to lift it for him. This next technique is going to utilize a technique that's commonly referred to in many different martial arts as a dragon wing strike, where we're pressing on two places at the same time. The idea of this is if I push on his chest, I won't necessarily knock him over. I just get him to lean backwards and the stomach comes forward. If I push him on the stomach, I don't get him to fall forward, and some of that energy gets wasted in his head coming forward. So the idea of a dragon wing strike is to pick two different points and push both of them at the same time so that no energy is wasted. So going from the idea of this raise hands, I lift his body weight up. I want to use my body weight to my advantage, so I'm going to pick up my foot and step right behind his foot. You'll see how close that gets my body to him. As I make that step, I'm going to press into his hip, and I'm going to press into his chest. And I'll send him into the water to have a drink. Let's take a look at what that does. For this application, I'm going to have him make a really big punch at me with that left hand. For the step forward parry and punch, this is one of the more aggressive parts of the form where I am going to actively attack the weapon that's trying to attack me and then try to get to his center to do a finishing blow. I'm aiming for the solar plexus, which is this hollow spot in the middle of the chest. That's going to make him lose his breath. So if I'm in my position for my left brush knee, as he's covering some distance, I'm going to cover that distance too. It's going to make that distance covering happen twice as fast. So I rock my foot, which moves me away from him. Then I step in, and the back of my fist, these knuckles right here, are going to slam into the meaty part of his forearm. I'm trying to Charlie horse that muscle right there. The same time that I Charlie horse that muscle, this hand is going to check and push that hand away from me so I don't end up running into it. From that point, my left foot's going to kick out. It's really to catch my balance, but this could certainly be a kick to his back shin or even his back knee to get him off balance more. I'm then going to commit my weight with my left hand coming underneath my armpit, aiming right towards the solar plexus and punching through. Let's take a look at what that does. So in our previous application, we had just finished the punch of step forward, parry, and punch. I mentioned before that anytime I put an appendage close to my opponent, they're going to want to grab a hold of it. So this circle I'm doing with my wrist is meant to make my hand wrap around his arm and get his fingers on top. This is going to twist his arm to where even if he's very strong, he's going to have a hard time holding on to my fist. From there, I'm going to use my left hand and right hand together to peel his hand off of mine like it's a banana. Then I'm going to step in real close, sit down underneath him, and I'm going to push in and up to get him to move away from me, just like the push we did earlier. That's the end of the basic Tai Chi form. Let's see what that movement does. Let me bring out my dummy here. Come on, dummy. He makes a pretty good dummy, doesn't he? So what this first movement does is it's a clearing motion. When he's reaching for me, I'm opening up his hands. So now he might come around and grab my neck. I can see he's getting ready to deliver this knee. This is where my cross hands comes in. I'm sitting down when his knee comes up, and I'm taking the power out of that knee. I can't stop there though. As soon as I sit down on his knee, I gotta lift up to his chin, and then I'm gonna push down on his chest. So this is causing this counterintuitive movement that's keeping him off balance. So in the world of Tai Chi, the martial applications, the movement are kind of up to the interpretation of the artist, just like any art. So you're going to see there's a lot of different interpretations for the same movement. And so we've explored our brush knee or pull back or press forward push in the previous beginning video. But here's another look at how these movements could work out. I'll bring my dummy out here again. So where this is building from is he's trying to throw a kick at me. So I'm blocking his kick and checking his chest to try to knock him off balance. This leaves my hand forward so it can be very easy to grab my shoulder. From this position, here's my pullback. This hand's gonna come down his arm. This hand comes to his head and I'm pulling him forward to get him off balance. So this is going to change his mind about his attack that he's doing. And he's gonna wanna pull back or throw this punch. So as this punch comes from this pull back, all I have to do is cross my hand and I'm doing my press right into this shoulder. If this punch is coming around the side and I push that shoulder, it's going to take the power out of that punch. He might still hit me. It's hooking around, but it's not going to have nearly the power that it did. So the very last thing is after I block that shoulder, go ahead and do that punch again, block that shoulder, now I'm going to push him away from me for the very end. So if we put all that together, you're going to see this chess game start to build. I'm trying to stay a movement or 2 or 5 ahead of him. So he's throwing this kick and I'm blocking and he grabs my shoulder. I bring him off balance. I block that shoulder and then I push him into the lake and now he's swimming with the fishes. So let's take a look at the martial application of fist under elbow. Let me bring my dummy back out again. Where'd he go? Oh, he was hiding behind the rock the whole time. All right, so he's gonna be throwing 2 punches at me. I'm doing these blocks, crossing his body. I'm gonna pass this hand as I do my cross step, and I catch it in this hand, just like passing a ball to the mitt. My next step is gonna be stepping forward, and here's this teeter-totter. I step forward right behind his foot and grab behind his knee. This hand's gonna pull, this hand's gonna lift. And I have him right here on my lower back. I'm not lifting on my shoulder. This isn't world wrestling. So I could set him on his head, but I'll be nice to my dummy, set him on his feet. And so there is that martial application to fist under elbow. Once I threw him, I was just bringing this hand around and I'll be standing in a guard stance. So let's take a look at the martial application of repulse monkey. I like to take a look at this from the position I was in before, which was my fist under elbow. And I noticed there's this guy creeping up on me. So what I'll be doing is reaching behind me, strike under his chin to stop his advance, and then I step all the way through and give him this elbow strike. Very powerful. Knock the wind out of him. Alternatively, let's say he snuck up behind me and he didn't see me. He's got a hold of my shoulders. Here's this repulsed monkey with this elbow strike. Now as I come in, there's that strike up underneath the chin. And then I can complete that movement to the next. It's just repeated over and over. So that's if somebody is attacking you from behind. To me, the first application I saw when I learned this was that somebody is attacking you from the front. As he's running into me, I'm stepping away, becoming an anchor, and as I stop, he's running into my hand. As he continues his advance, I stop him. He continues advance, I stop him. And I'm aiming nice for this, right for this nice soft spot, his solar plexus, with the heel of my palm. If I take this nice strong horse stance and he runs into that, he's going to have second thoughts about attacking me again. So let's take a look at this martial application to slanting flying. So this comes from the repulse monkey, and to me it's kind of like a bullfight. I'm drawing his forward momentum with that repulse monkey. He's charging at me. And then at this last minute, I'm going to step off to the side and I'm going to use his energy against him. So if he's coming at me and here's this repulse monkey, he's coming at me again, I'm going to deflect this and push him off to the back. And there's that slanting flying movement. And so that movement concludes that momentum of the repulse monkey. Let's explore this martial application for raise hands. Again, a little bit different than the one we did at the beginning. So at this point, with this slanting flying is what we're leading from, and I'm thinking about this like a slip. He throws this punch at me, and I'm slipping off to the side of that punch. I just avoided it. But along with that, I'm adding my hand movement. So I'm blocking his hand and striking his rib at the same time. Continuing my momentum from this slide, I'm going to bring this foot in and lift his chin. I step out into my horse stance and hit him in the solar plexus, knock some wind out of him. I can push him away and then step into my guard stance, which is my raise hands. Let's explore the martial application the stork spreads its wings. Now the thing about the stork, it's not very strong, but it makes up for that with cunning. It'll use its wings to distract from things like when it kicks with its feet. So let's take a look at this. When he's reaching at me, I'm making this block, and then I'm coming in and striking high at the head. Now this could be an open hand strike, it could be a knife hand strike. Ultimately, I'm just trying to get his focus up so that I can attack him low later. Now let's take a look at the martial application for the left brush knee. Again, we touched on this in the beginning video, so it's the same. This particular one, I'm using it to off balance. So as he's moving into me, it doesn't matter if he's punching or kicking, I'm pushing low on his hip as well as straight on his chest. So if I push both at the same time, he's in the lake instead of punching or kicking me. Let's take a look at the martial application to twist step and needle at sea bottom. So I'm using this twist step to gain distance on him. I'm getting closer so that now I can reach down and grab his foot. Now when I'm down here and I got a hold of his foot, there's two things I can do. From holding his foot, I could just push his knee and knock him over backwards. This particular case, I'm reaching down to grab his foot so I could lift it. And you'll notice that I want to be close enough so I'm not trying to grab his foot from out here trying to lift it. I'm going to get kneed in the face, right? So all this is going to be important, the context that it comes from. But when I do this twist step, I'm right here next to his foot. I'm sinking straight down and grabbing it and lifting it with my legs straight up, using the power of my legs. Now we're going to take this martial application for fan through the back and we're going to chain it to the previous techniques, and you'll start to see the chess game that is Tai Chi that unfold here. So we'll go back to stork spreads its wings. When he reaches to me, I do this block and then I'm striking one side and the other side. Here's that distraction. I'm getting his attention up so that I can push his hip. As he steps back, I slide in and grab his foot. His weight's not on it. Makes it really easy for me to pick up. Fan through the back as I'm stepping behind his foot, reaching across his chest, and can very easily sweep him to the ground. And unless he knows how to fall, he'll take a lot of damage when he hits. Now let's take a look at the martial application for White Snake puts out its tongue. Pretty straightforward. It's two things. It's a back fist, number one, and this back fist is actually coming straight forward to his face. I don't want to be coming down on the top of his head. That's much harder than my hand. I'll break my hand. This is meant to strike down on the top of his nose. It's going to cause his eyes to close, and they're going to water up, while this technique has its effect right to the eyes. He thinks he's Three Stooges. This is a Three Stooges technique. It can work pretty well unless they know the counter. Now we'll talk about the martial application to pull, press, push. We've talked about this before. There's a lot of interpretations for it. In this particular case, this is coming from my snake puts out tongue. Now my idea with this technique isn't necessarily to push his eyes back in the back of his skull, but it's going to get his hands to come up. Anytime you attack toward the eyes, the hands want to come up to protect it. Well, this is getting me in a position where now I can grab his wrist and his arm and do a pull. Now there's other ways I could grab this. I could reach under and grab his elbow and grab the back of his head. If I control his head, where his head goes, his body follows. So if I'm here and I get this pull back to here, I'm using my press to now set up my push. So for the martial application for this single whip, we're going to chain this together with the previous techniques. We're going back to White Snake puts out tongue. If he's charging at me, I can stop him with this back fist, give him this poke to the eyes. Now his hands are up. I can now grab him and do my pull to get him to resist that. As I push, he might grab my sleeves. This is good for me. He's got a nice tight grip. I grab onto his arm. Now when I pull him, I'm not trying to use my muscles, but I'm using my weight. If you remember how this single whip works, I'm going to push down with this hand while I shift my weight, and you'll see how that pulled him off balance. I had to hold him up there for a second. Now this hand, we're going to switch positions. I push this right across my body so that now I can grab. If he had a sleeve, I'd grab with my crane's beak, but right now I'm just grabbing on like my handcuffs. This foot's going to step behind him while this arm comes across his chest, and there's my single whip. I have an arm bar right here, as well as I'm taking him right to the floor. Now let's take a look at the martial application to this cloud's hands and the single whip. Again, a bunch of ways this could be interpreted. When I look at this movement, I have, with the basic movement of my feet come together, two real different types of movement. One of them is advancing. And as I'm advancing, this hand is really striking at his chest, but then it slides up into his throat, maybe even makes his jaw clack a little bit. My other hand, my right hand, is striking at his groin. And this is kind of the distraction. He's going to see this hand, which is going to help mask what this hand is doing. Again, it's not going to incapacitate him, but it's going to distract him hitting him there. The second type of movement is the retreat. So if I've advanced over here, he's striking at me. My retreat is my opportunity to move a little bit away from him, buy some distance and time, while I can make that block happen. So we also had some alternative footwork. We had a step behind, a step in front. Again, the main point of those was to gain more distance on our opponent. So for instance, my step behind, if I do this movement here, again, this hand isn't really meant to do anything but distract him while I grab his wrist. When I'm here, I can now bring this hand underneath, step behind him, And as I bring this arm across, here's this trip. I have this arm bar across my chest, and I'm tripping him right over my hip at the same time. Same idea with the step in front, as I'm trying to get more distance, but now I'm going to come in front of him. So same thing, as I come into here, I can distract while I grab his wrist. Now when I come underneath his arm, I can step in front of him. Here's this elbow strike that would get him to bend over. I still have this arm bar, but now I'm going to reach up behind his head and grab his head, and I can sweep his foot out while I throw him to the floor.